I just want to take our viewers through some of the occasions when a special session of Parliament has been called. 1992 August, 50th anniversary of the Quit India or the Bharat Chodo movement. Special session in 1997 on the occasion of the Golden Jubilee of India's independence. 26 November 2015, 125th birth anniversary of B.R. Ambedkar. 2017 June 30th, when the Modi government brought the GST, the Goods and Services tax. So this isn't common. The fact that a special session is happening between the 18th and the 22nd, that we know because the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi tweeted about it. Now what this specifically entails and who this benefits or doesn't benefit is up for questions. Joining me on this broadcast at this time, I want a whole cross-section of perspectives. So let me welcome R.P. Singh from the BJP. Rajat Sethi joins us, political analyst. Rahul Verma is with us from the Centre for Policy Research, and with us is one of India's leading psephologists, co-director at Lokniti, Dr. Sanjay Kumar. R.P. Singh, let me start with you. What is this googly you've just bowled? Everyone was getting set for the G20 from the 8th, the 9th and the 10th. Suddenly you've got everyone wondering, I'm sure including yourself, will there be a general election sooner? What's going on?
Well, it's your guess or my guess. I mean, we don't know what the session is about. The Parliamentary Affairs Minister has not declared still the details of the session. He just said this special session. And obviously, when the session is called, the agenda will be discussed with the opposition also. And then all parties put together decide on the agenda of the Parliament. It's not just one party who decides. And if I go by what you are saying, that one nation, one election, then there has to be a cabinet meeting also for that to approve the one nation, one election. So I really don't know, because the indications are there with the media, but not with us. And then I don't see anything of that sort as far the processes of the democracy goes, that there is some preparedness or readiness for that. But yes, one nation, one election is a welcome thing, which should be welcomed by all. If process can start, if consultancy can start, if people can come on board, if political parties can come on board, nothing better than that, because give me a second, because it would help us to perform better, and with any government to perform better without their work which they are doing, and also it will save a lot of money and sort of a lot of energy and a lot of chaos also. So it's better if it can be done. And as Prime Minister
Rahul
said,
Verma, there's so many different theories doing the round. One is that the BJP is in for rough weather in the assembly elections which are due in November, December. Rajasthan is the one state where the BJP seems to be in front, but even there, because of Vasundhara Raje not being fully on board, the situation is tricky. Chhattisgarh seems to be a lost cause, the Congress clearly ahead. Madhya Pradesh also, the Congress with a narrower margin seems to have its nose ahead. In Telangana, the BJP's vote share, seat share according to the polling data has come down. The Congress has bounced up. It's 1-2 between Congress and BRS. Because of all of this, the conspiracy theory goes that they don't want the assembly elections to happen, and if they happen along with the Lok Sabha elections, because Prime Minister Modi is so popular, the BJP gets a tailwind. What's your reading of the political state of play? Who could this benefit? Who could this hurt?
The session, or see,
if one nation, one election is indeed brought at this time, who does it help? Who does it hurt?
It's hard to predict who will it hurt or benefit. Of course, if BJP is going to bring in this legislation, they have some calculation that given the Prime Minister's popularity, this may end up helping them in the short run. In the medium to long run, we don't know. And I think, as you rightly pointed out, Rahul, at the moment it looks like more of a conspiracy theory than a real thing for multiple reasons. Even if BJP seems to be trailing in all these 4 elections, I don't think there is any serious conversation within the party about advancing the elections by 6 months. I don't think Prime Minister Modi is going to do that. Second, as S.Y. Qureshi pointed out, that you can't extend these like by a day, right? Like the House cannot be extended by a day for these 4 states. And you can't just bring in President's rule, right? You will have to actually, President's rule can also be brought under certain circumstances when the government recommends that there is a constitutional crisis in the state, only then president's rule can be brought in. So it's not easy at this point of time to basically either move these 4 state assembly elections and have it with Lok Sabha elections in May, or advance the Lok Sabha elections. I think maybe the government starts a conversation on one nation, one election or UCC. Both these would be just conversations. I don't think
so that's an important point you're making. You're basically just floating the balloon like you did with the UCC, bring it in Uttarakhand, bring it in some of the other states, and then build it up. So it's one of the issues then which you're trying to generate conversation around. I want to go across to Mumbai. Joining us from there is Rajdeep Sardesai. He's tracking the big India meeting, speaking to a cross-section of opposition leaders. Rajdeep, we were all building up for the big G20 summit. I was interviewing Fareed Zakaria and the whole conversation was on geopolitics. The geo went out of the window. We're now only down to the politics. What's been the reaction in the India alliance after this announcement that a one nation, one election bill could be on the anvil on the 18th of September?
Rahul, 2 things. First of all, there is no announcement. This is source-based, number 1. Number 2, this is a talking point in my view. I don't think this is a serious attempt to try and push through the legislation of one nation, one election. It's a very complicated, complex issue where there are various stakeholders, including regional parties who are allied to the BJP, as well as state governments. Remember, a dozen state governments are not BJP-ruled states. I see it as a bit of a red herring. I do believe that Mr. Modi is using this session to make 2 points. One, his image, his stature enhanced in the backdrop of Chandrayaan and G20. It will be used by the treasury benches to push Mr. Modi's image. Unlike the previous monsoon session where the no confidence motion, the opposition targeted Mr. Modi on Manipur, this will be seen as a session where Mr. Modi and the BJP would like to set the narrative of being a strong leader who's giving India a global image. The GDP figure numbers are good today. I expect, and we expect before the festive season, not just the LPG cut that took place 2 days ago, but also possibly a petrol diesel duty cut. Look, Mr. Modi wants to set the narrative, and he will use this session to set the narrative amid speculation that this could be an early election. I agree with Rahul Verma. My experience of having discussed this issue with Mr. Modi is very clear. Atal Bihari Vajpayee made a big mistake by going in for an early election in 2004. That's a bad thing to do for whoever is in power. When you're in power, you use the instruments of power to your best ability. There's talk that in that session, he may even float the idea of a women's reservation bill. If not in September, then in November, December. Look, Mr. Modi believes he has a bag of arrows with him while he is in power. Also, while the India alliance still doesn't have an agenda set, he can constantly set the agenda. A lot of this also, Rahul, remember, happened on a day when in the morning the Adani revelations came in and the opposition looked like they were going to set the agenda. This is how Mr. Modi plays his politics. I sense that Mr. Modi wants to set the narrative early before the India alliance can get its act together. Hence this session being called where the Prime Minister will be the central figure. He wants to make 2024 a leadership contest. He will use this session to try and project himself as the supreme leader.
You know, but when you throw too many balls up in the air, you also need to be able to collect them. You know, you've got the Ram Temple, you've got the UCC, you've got one nation, one election. All of this, especially one nation, one election, will have a counter reaction from other parties. For example, would Naveen Patnaik or a Jagan Reddy, who've been on the margin supporting the BJP government now crucial opportunities, be as enthusiastic about one nation, one election? Because, you know, does it necessarily suit them? Just inadvertently, in any case, Orissa and Andhra Pradesh happen to go to elections when the general elections happen. But there are lots of boards, lots of pieces on the board which will have to be realigned once this goes in. For example, you mentioned the women's reservation bill. So far, the RJD and the SP are part of the India alliance. If the women's reservation bill were to be brought, the RJD and the SP will have their own view on it and could split the India alliance down the middle.
But you see, Rahul, this is about agenda setting. 1 month ago or 2 months ago, the government floated uniform civil code. And then they saw it, they weren't getting traction. I'm told the internal survey showed it may be getting traction within the core BJP vote, but there were concerns over whether in tribal areas and other areas, once you dissected the bill, whether it would get the same traction. It was done in a sense to offset the opposition's attempt to push Manipur. Now you've got a situation where the Prime Minister believes he's got a window of opportunity before you get into real state election mode, that's October, November, December, to try and push in these other trial balloons, women's reservation, one nation, one election. Give the impression that you're constantly doing something new. That's been the way Mr. Modi does his politics. I keep maintaining, I don't think the opposition recognizes the kind of political animal they are confronting. Mr. Modi is a politician with whom you can expect the unexpected. He will constantly be seen to be doing things to push the opposition on the defensive. Hence, he's throwing this idea of a special session where he hopes to, after what happened in the no confidence motion, where the government was for a large part on the defensive on Manipur, can he now be on the aggressive with Chandrayaan, with G20, with a decent GDP growth rate figures coming in, suggest that India is a nation on the move and give a more positive signaling ahead of the festive season. That's my sense of the man. I could be proven horribly wrong and he could surprise us by saying I'm going in for a snap poll, but I would be very surprised if that really happens.
Okay, thank you very much, Rajdeep, for joining us. Rajdeep will have more when he comes on with News Today at 9. I want to go across to Rajat Sethi, who understands the inner workings of the current BJP. Rajat, what's your reading of forget what happens ultimately, because that's not known for sure. If one nation, one election is brought in on the 18th of September, what would be the inner thinking in the BJP at the moment?
Well, I think if you were to go by this hypothesis that one nation, one election has to be implemented, then there is no other way other than the national election getting preempted. There could be multiple explanations for that as well. One explanation could be that several state elections are anyway going to polls, and doing it alongside the national election might rub off the goodwill that Prime Minister Modi carries on.
But this cuts both ways. Also, the other theory is that just 1 second, Rajat. Last time when the BJP lost in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Chhattisgarh, a lot of the anti-incumbency that had got built against the BJP locally got washed out when they lost those assembly elections. It gave the BJP and Prime Minister Modi a clean slate in time for the Lok Sabha election. So that same theory cuts both ways.
Well, in my opinion, when a party is going for national elections, it would be largely in and around the national figures, which would be that of Prime Minister Modi. The local anti-incumbency would fade away in that light, because that suddenly changes the game. Also, remember, there are important states where the governments aren't pretty stable. Look at Maharashtra, for example. Look at other similar states which might, want to en masse resign and ensure that they all go together with the national election. So if that hypothetical situation is in the realm of possibility, then I believe that few more states will join the bandwagon and would want to go for, at least if we see a healthy mix of 5, 6, 7 additional states come together. We can have Jammu Kashmir, by the way, which might also go preemptively along with the national elections. So if there is a solid a number of states, one nation, two elections can also be within the realm of possibility, if not all the states coming together in one go.
Okay, you can do it gradually and in stages rather than trying to do it all at once. I want to go across for a psephological perspective to Dr. Sanjay Kumar as I welcome Vikas Singh, who's come in a very bright shirt. So give me, Mr. Singh, just a moment to come to you. I want to go to Sanjay Kumar first on cephalogically, and if you look at the arithmetic of the elections, if this round of assembly elections was held in conjunction with the Lok Sabha elections, does it really help the BJP enough to want to make such a big change?
It certainly helps the BJP, Rahul, and why I say that, there is a clear evidence. I have analyzed data over a period of time, looked at all the elections which are held simultaneously, in a sense, state assembly election which has been held along with the Lok Sabha elections, and also state assembly elections which are not held along with the Lok Sabha elections. And there is a clear difference. The bigger national party, whichever party is in power at that moment, or the party which is dominant party at the moment, stands to gain even in a state assembly election, when state assembly election are held along with the Lok Sabha election. And when you hold the assembly elections, say 6 months away from the Lok Sabha election, whether it is before or after, the impact of that bigger national party goes down. So, and this is the data which I have analyzed, which I have put it out in public domain. It's published in the book. So going by that trend in the past, I think if state assembly elections of this round are held along with the Lok Sabha election, BJP certainly stands to gain. To what extent? Very difficult to predict at this moment.
No, but the counter to that is that there is a certain level of anti-incumbency which is only natural to build after say 18 years of being in power in Madhya Pradesh, after 9 years of being in power at the center. That could get washed out in the assembly elections. If you go and do the state assembly elections and the Lok Sabha elections at the same time, you are going into the polls facing double anti-incumbency.
Yes, there are both the theories can be floated, but my own sense is that when you hold the Lok Sabha elections together, Prime Minister Modi is on the forefront. Prime Minister Modi's campaign, his face will be on the forefront. I am not saying that in the state assembly election his face will be not on the forefront. Even in the state assembly election, whether it is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh or any other state, BJP will take the advantage of using Prime Minister's face. But remember, there is a chief minister in the state. Madhya Pradesh, the chief minister has been in power. BJP is chief minister for last 18, 19 years. So it becomes important for the state, for the BJP to also use chief minister's face. If you hold the Lok Sabha and the state assembly elections together, I think Prime Minister Modi's impact would be so high that it would be able to contain to a great extent if there is any anti-incumbency against the state government. That's my reading.
Okay, it could definitely help in a state like Telangana, where as of now, because of Karnataka and everything that's happened since the Congress seems to be in the ascendant, you make the Lok Sabha and the assembly elections happen together, suddenly BJP is a stronger force than it would be. So we'll build on the politics, but I want to go for a legal perspective to Vikas Singh. I love the color of your shirt and how bright you are, so nicely done there. Because can you explain to our viewers what this requires legally? From what I gather, it requires a constitutional amendment which will require 2/3 majority, at least 5 articles of the Constitution, Article 83, Article 85, 172, 174, 356 need to be changed, which have different aspects of how elections are held and how soon you can call the next election. What would this entail from a legal point of view?
So, Rahul, you're right, 83 will have to be amended, 172 will have to be amended.
So 83 is the term of the Lok Sabha will be 5 years from the first date of sitting. 172, which you mentioned, is Legislative Assembly will be 5 years from the date of sitting. But go on.
So both these articles talk of unless earlier dissolved. So it will have that unless earlier dissolved will have to be, deleted. And it will have to provide for a fixed term, and it will also have to say that there will be a first term which will be specified, which will probably have to be 24. That on 24 all the elections will happen, and then they'll all go on for 5 years. But the real, working of this will happen by the amendment to the anti-defection law, because the moment you have a weak anti-defection law which permits a person to resign, so defect from a particular political party, and lose his seat and come back into the same assembly or the same Lok Sabha. So that disqualification is not qualified as to what is the disqualification. Unlike in the disqualification for a criminal, offence, there is a 6-year period specified for any conviction for more than 2 years. Here the disqualification doesn't say that this disqualification will be for 1 day or for 1 year or 5 years or 6 years. According to me, and it has been, according to me, wrongly interpreted by the Supreme Court, that you can come back to the same assembly or the same parliament after having been disqualified for having...
No, so if there's one election, one nation, for whatever reason, take Madhya Pradesh, Scindia left, the government came into minority, now the Madhya Pradesh government of Kamal Nath is no longer in majority. What happens then? Is there president's rule for 2.5 years? Do they have elections midterm? No. If they have elections midterm, then what happens to the idea of one nation, one election?
So when you talk of the no confidence motion, the Law Commission in its recommendation has suggested that there will be not a no confidence motion, but there will be an alternative expression of giving confidence in somebody else. So it will not be a no confidence simpliciter. The no confidence will have to have a positive recommendation for some other alignment to take over in place of the the government being shunted out. So it can't be a simplicity no confidence. So if there is a no confidence motion and if there is no alternative, then there's no confidence.
No, so apart
motion.
from two-thirds majority in the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, from what I gather, this also needs to go to the states, and half the states at least need to approve this. Because many of the states aren't BJP run. Why would a state like Karnataka, where Siddaramaiah and Shiv Kumar just came to power, or West Bengal under Mamata Banerjee, which won a very tough election, why would they ever agree to this?
According to me, Rahul, it doesn't require to go to the assemblies, because that is only if it is part 4 of part 5 of chapter 4 or part 6 of chapter 5 and chapter 1 of part 11. So only in these parts of the constitution you require to go to the assembly.
So you're saying they can bring this law, it will be law, it doesn't need to go to the states?
It doesn't need to go to the
That's
states.
your reading, because I've heard that they do need to go to the states.
No, I don't think so, because the requirement of going to the states is only for certain articles when they need to be amended, and 83 and 172 are not included in those. And the moment you provide for a fixed term in those two articles and say that there can't be any dissolution of the assembly or the parliament in between, then that I think should seal the issue, which will not require these. So three things. So one will be the anti-defection law to be amended. The second will be that there will be no confidence motion. It will have to be always a no confidence motion along with a confidence motion. And thirdly, these articles will have to specify a fixed term. And once the fixed term is specified and the record date is set, that 2024 will be the first election, then thereafter every 5 years, 29 and 34, etc., the election to all the entire country will be held. That, according to me, is the way forward as far as doing this is concerned constitutionally.
Okay, thanks Vikas Singh for joining us. Do also keep in mind that this could be the initiation of the conversation in Parliament. So you introduce the bill, say that we want that there be a debate, and that we realize that we may not be able to push it through just at this moment, but that's where we are going. So thinking about 2028-29, could that be the direction? Because you can't make such big change happen all at the same time. I want to get a quick final word from Rahul Verma. A lot of the parties in Parliament, especially in the Rajya Sabha, which have been supporting the BJP, are they likely to stick along with the BJP? Because on matters which aren't of personal interest, the likes of Jagan Reddy may weigh in on the side of the BJP, but if it's a matter which concerns his own personal and political interest, he'll think about it 10 times over.
Absolutely. And so far we haven't heard many of these parties, especially the state level parties, on what their opinion on one nation, one election is. And the likelihood of a party like YSRCP or BJP going with BJP on this bill is very low. And even then, like, my position at the moment is that I don't think government is serious about bringing one nation, one election.
RP Singh, the charge that we are hearing from the India Alliance, the likes of Omar Abdullah and the others tweeting essentially to say that because the Adani story was in the headlines, because Rahul Gandhi did that big press conference, therefore you floated this trial balloon to get the attention away from a story which puts you in the dock.
Well, will you leave a story because of this? No, you're not going to. The media is not going to leave any story for that. But every media will pursue whatever is important for the nation. But as far as Adani's story goes, I have other side to say that. Rahul Gandhi wanted to take a lead from the complete INDA group, so he did what he did. I mean, he repeated what he repeated. But fact is that we also are not aware, because all political parties will be taken on board before the agenda is brought to the parliament, and then everything will discuss with all political parties, and then the agenda will be there in front of them. So let's wait for that time.
Okay, Sanjay Kumar, final words. How could this impact some of the assembly elections? Because see, one is to do this when Prime Minister Modi is around, and therefore naturally you've got this big banyan tree, you can provide shade to some of the other states, save them from the son of anti-incumbency, and therefore get them over the hump in a state like Haryana, which would otherwise be tricky, but it kind of goes through because of the Modi wave. But once a change of this kind is made, it stays forever. So it's not a short-term here and now change. Till the mid-60s, Indian elections used to be held at the same time. Then because, governments started getting dissolved ahead of time, the whole process went awry. But that's the way it used to be after independence till the mid-60s.
No, Rahul, I think as an idea, it looks very fancy. If you talk to the common people will also like the idea, and they would say, yes, there's no harm in doing that. But there are lots and lots of practical difficulties, which we have been talking about. Like, what do you do if there is a early dissolution of assembly? If the government of any state has not been able to survive for 5 years, what do you do? Do you want to keep that house suspended for another 4.5 years or another 3 years? So I think there are lots and lots of legal problems, lots and lots of practical difficulties. So this kind of a law, personally, I don't think is going to be fruitful. You can't force all the state assembly elections to be held together. My personal view is that, and I have been saying this in previous rounds of such discussion, you could think of, like timing of election. Like we know that in the October month, there is a festival which comes, Dussehra and Diwali. You could think of months in a year. This is the time when, even if the assembly of a state has been dissolved in the month of February, but November is the month or October is the month when you are going to hold election. Club all those elections which is to be held in 1 year, because at the moment what happens, one elections take place in the month of February, then you have an election in July, and then you have elections in November, December. So at least this will solve the problem.
Okay. I remember asking Home Minister Amit Shah this question during one of our interactions, and he said it doesn't need to be done in one go. This can be done in phases. You could work over a period of years to a situation where you're ultimately able to achieve one nation, one election. Do what you can right away, which could potentially in this case be to combine the assembly and the general elections, and then keep adding on. So you have fewer election cycles and you collapse as many as possible in that idea of a one nation, one election. So we'll track. It does make things a lot more exciting for us, or maybe not, because there's so many elections, so we get to show our election coverage of. There's only one election, then it's all concentrated into that one day. So I'm conflicted. Of course, it does mean that there's more time for governance. It also does suggest that you don't always have to be in election mode. But the advantage is when you're in election mode, you know that there's pressure from the public, and therefore that gives walls of its own where people are able to express themselves and tell the government what they think. So this is